as we bring in Brian Baldinger, and we try to figure out what we saw in London. Baldy, good to talk to you again after a week off. And we were just talking about how the vibes in Chicago seem to be changing a little bit here. And I know you were pretty excited about what you saw on Sunday against the Jaguars too.
Well, you had to be. I mean, I heard you guys just talking about, all the injuries in the secondary. To see, Elijah, and Jalen step up, and then, Josh came in for Kyler, and got that, got an important interception. It was really, really pretty impressive. Elijah gets the fumble recovery off of, TJ Edwards' forced fumble. I mean, those guys were really productive. I think Hicks led them in tackles. He played every snap. So to see backup step in for really good players, that's impressive. But, you saw another development in the offense. We saw better play design. The touchdown to Cole Kmet is a brilliant play, really well executed. You can walk through it. You can practice it. You might not ever execute it as well as they did when they had to in that situation. After it looked like they were had a little jet lag in the first quarter of that game, but they kicked it into gear pretty good, getting the running game going. So it just continues to get better and better, and they're putting themselves in a position to really compete in that division right now.
Baldy, when you watched Caleb Williams and what he was able to do against the Jaguars last Sunday, what stood out to you the most about what he was able to accomplish?
I just think how decisive he was. He's very decisive and where to go with the ball, and just excellent accuracy. We fell in love in the preseason. We fell in love in the draft process because of all the splash plays. Well, they can happen. They happen in real time. You don't really try to recreate that. Sometimes it's necessary. We see it from Josh Allen. We see it from Mahomes. We've seen it from Caleb. But he's just, like we said just a couple weeks ago, he's just taking the completions that are there, and he's making good decisions with good accuracy. And that's kind of the art of playing quarterback. It's good that he has excellent mobility. You could call runs for him. He can scramble for first downs. But I just think his decision-making, finding the open receiver, was very, very good, on Sunday against Jacksonville.
Yeah, that back shoulder throw in a tight window to Keenan Allen for a touchdown, it's just that's definitely next level stuff. That's chemistry. And on the back end of that, there's not many wide receivers the Bears have had in this city that I would say would even catch that ball, too, because, I mean, he's rifling it in there, and Keenan Allen has to adjust to it at the last second. So, I mean, I think that was just a really good example of what Ryan Poles has been, what he tried to get Caleb to help him this offseason, to give them the right situation to start a rookie quarterback right away. But also Caleb doing what he needs to do on his end to just understand that that's where that ball had to go, and he's got the guy to catch it.
There's no question. Not everybody is a back shoulder catch receiver. I could go through a list of, great quarterbacks in this league that wouldn't throw those type of throws to just any receiver. But Keenan has exceptional body control. I think you'll see that down the road from Rome, because I think Rome has that ability as well with his size and reach. But Keenan has always had great body control. It's what helps make him an elite player, whether it's being a good router and being able to beat man coverage and separate, but that ability to adjust to the ball in the air. And it does take – I see that throw end up out of bounds a lot in this league, and it looks like a terrible throw. Not everybody, has the timing to be able to do that. Keenan's one of those guys. He's always been able to do that.
Baldy, what do you think's kind of switched with this offensive line the last few weeks as you're watching the tape?
Well, first of all, they've basically lined up. Pryor's taken over at guard. And I know Matt. Matt's bounced around this league a little bit. Wasn't great in Indianapolis. Didn't play last year in San Francisco. Was a backup in Philly. Kind of a swing tackle guard guy. But they've given him he's huge. Like he's the biggest guy up front. And him and Kendall look like they're developing some chemistry the way you want that to happen. Tevin's gotten healthier, and Braxton's been pretty solid. I think the five guys up front, have started to gel 3 weeks in a row now. The commitment to the run game looks real to me. They've, when they went three and out to start the game, they started that next possession by getting DeAndre going. And when the offensive line kind of feels that, and they feel like on 2nd and 7, we're going to run it again. We're not just going to, start ail-mailing this thing. I think that chemistry is taken over. And then every running back, whether it's Rashawn or DeAndre, there's always a little bit of a dance that takes place between the back and the line and where these plays are going to break. You can walk through them and you can practice them and, okay, this is inside zone. It's going to cut off here. And then you get in the game, you're like, okay, the Mike linebacker is overplaying it. You're just going to feel where the openings are. And I feel like they're getting that chemistry between back and line together right now.
Baldy, in one of your breakdowns, you described just watching the Cole Kmet play where he scores the first touchdown of the day, a brand new era of Bears football. And again, kind of goes to what Shane Waldron's been doing. What have you just made of the play calling from Shane Waldron? He was under fire here for a little bit, but it seems like he's kind of figured out his rhythm and his role of what to do with the playmakers that he has.
There's some creativity right now. I mean, that play, the first one, you've got Keenan Allen coming in a ghost motion, and it's a flip, and it's a fake double screen, and meanwhile Cole Kmet's coming off a delay and running down the seam, and he got Jacksonville spread out all over the place, chasing the fakes, and it opened wide open for him. Look, other teams have run that play. It's not like it's new, but I haven't seen the Bears run that play ever. So I mean, I just think using Caleb in a read option type situation, and trying to slow down guys like Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen. I mean, some of these guys are really good pass rushers. Slow them down in the pass rush game with some of those options. I just see the use of motion for a purpose rather than some teams just use this motion. There doesn't seem any sort of rhyme or reason to it. There's a lot of rhyme and reason what they're doing right now. And I think the frustration especially on third downs early in the year, where it didn't look like there was much of a design and it didn't really make sense to me, some of the plays that were being called. I think they've taken a look at it, and now they've got everybody healthy. Keenan's in there. The line's playing good. The running game is there. Now let's kind of open the offense up a little bit. The quarterback is stable. He's throwing from the pocket. He's making good decisions. Let's start growing this offense a little bit. I saw the same thing, ironically, in Washington with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden. And, of course, they see each other next week. But I've seen the offense grow as the stability has to be stable up front. You got to protect your guy first before you can kind of start these things and try some of these new plays because it takes time. And, quick penetration, an offensive lineman getting beat quick on stuff like that, it blows the whole play up. And I feel like there's a trust now with what they're doing up front.
Baldy's going to be in Washington, by the way, next week for that Bears game. And
they just flex that game. They flex that game out to 4:25?
Yeah, 4:25, the big late afternoon window. And we were kind of having that discussion to start the show, Baldy, and I always like to get, obviously everybody in Chicago is hyped right now. Whether you were in London or not in London on Sunday, like it seemed like this team was kind of arriving with the way that they performed. We saw this last year with the Lions, kind of over the last 2 seasons maybe, but there were just these moments where you're like, oh, maybe the Lions aren't the Lions anymore. Maybe they're for real. And obviously the Bears are behind on that track. But from your perspective, and now we see a game get flexed to the late afternoon window. It's obviously a great matchup with Caleb Williams and Jay Daniels and all that. But, I mean, from your more national perspective, how serious are you taking the Chicago Bears team right now?
Well, I think you have to take them serious. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, they're taking the ball away. We just started the show talking about all the backups that filled in for really good players, and they all stepped up. So there's some coaching going on. We know that if anything would happen to any of the linebackers, we already know Sanborn is going to step in and play good. So you're seeing depth along the defense line. I mean, the defense is solid. And so if you could take it away the way they are, and keeping the score down, and the quarterback is playing at a higher level, increasingly higher level, why can't you go compete with Detroit? Why can't you go into Washington and beat a Washington team that's a great offense? I'm not so sure their defense is up to, you know, top 15 standards or not. They're very susceptible to a lot of things right now. So it could be a shootout. Who knows? But from a national perspective, I think the reason why this game is being flexed, obviously the quarterbacks are going to be the story next week. But you've got two really competitive teams, two teams that legitimately could be in first place at this point next week and playing for first place next week. So the game has a lot of meaning, a lot of importance from a national scale.
You talk about their depth.
And by the way, I've never seen a game flex this early ever. Now, I might be wrong. I don't know the history of all that. But I haven't seen a game flexed 1 o'clock to 4:30 to the national window this early in the season like this. I'm sure it's happened, but I mean, it affects me because we thought we were going to get bumped out the game.
You're right. It is rare to have it this early. It might also be a little bit of a shot at what's been going on in Cincinnati, moving the Bengals out of that window.
You're gone.
Hey, you talk about their depth. They got depth at long snapper. Their emergency long snapper just won NFC Special Teams Player of the Week in Cole Kmet. Ball, did you ever have to long snap at any point in your football career?
Yeah, I did. It scared me to death. I hated it. I practiced it because I was the backup. I remember I did it at the LA Coliseum against the Raiders. We lost our snapper in the game. And of course, who's on the, this is before there was any rules. Like they would just put your best defensive lineman on the snapper and they would just beat the hell out of him. So here's Howie Long on my nose, and I'm like, I'm nervous as hell. I just want to get the snap back there. I know how to do it. But Howie's talking to me and it's nerve wracking, man. I mean, I don't know if Cole feels that way. They protect the center a little bit better now than they did. But, it's not fun. My elbows still are painful from all the practice because it just beats the hell out of your elbows up. If you're an offensive lineman, you got to do that. Most teams, but back in the day, nobody had just a long snapper. It was always an offensive lineman, your center, that did it. And so, your elbows are taking a beating every day, blocking Randy White or something. And then you got to go in there and do this silly long snapping stuff. I'm glad they have specialists that do it now.
Well, that seems to be the consensus that everybody who has the long snap, it's like the worst thing possible.
Yeah, Cole said he was terrified. He was terrified.
It's like, no, please tell me this isn't happening. Let's go for it on fourth down. Let's don't kick this field goal. Come on. We're crazy to try and this field goal right now.
Baldy, really quickly, speaking of depth, you got super enthusiastic when you were watching Austin Booker travel downfield 10 yards to tackle Brian Thomas Jr. Again, that's what Eberflus does. He preaches that hits principle. If anything fails for the Bears, at least they have that. When you watch this Bears defense, is that something that you see as just a common thing? Everybody's flying around.
Yeah, you see it. It's real. And everybody preaches it, but not everybody does it. I mean, I can show you plenty of teams that aren't getting to the football the way the Bears do. But I just, he's a young kid, young draft pick. It's, you want to see development. It's a completely different sport going from Kansas to the NFC North. Honestly, like everybody plays the exact same defense in the Big 12. Nobody really learns how to rush the passer in that conference. You draft guys from that conference based on measurables. He's 6'5", he's got a wingspan, he's fast. But then when you see effort like that, where you're doubling back the weight, because I always was taught by Rod Marinelli and other great defensive line coaches in this league that the screen game is the defensive lineman's job. Turn and run, turn and chase, go eliminate it before it gets started. And good teams do that. And to see Austin do that, at least, because he's not playing a lot of snaps, but he shows up when something like that happens. And you're sitting in that meeting on Monday, and you're in that room. Maybe it's the whole defense, or maybe the defensive line. I don't know how they do it. Everybody does it different. But like you can at least say, like, I belong here. I belong with Montez and some of these guys. So I'm pulling for the kid, man. He's just a young guy, and you see that effort. It's great. It's great to see.
Baldy, with this bye week, getting a lot of questions from fans about the trade deadline. Bears have been active the last couple of years, whether it was trading away Roquan Smith or trading for Montez Sweat. And obviously the one that didn't work was trading for Chase Claypool as well. Do you see any spots where and I'm not asking you to name names, but just any areas on this team where you'd be like, yeah, it might be worth giving up a second-round pick again to bring in somebody else that can help fill a gap? Because obviously the counter argument is Bears have 2 second-round picks. They're going to have a first-round pick too, and maybe they're not quite to that point where they're just one player away, and you might still want to be adding more depth through the first 60 picks of the draft next year too, to keep adding to this thing. But just what's your thoughts on where the Bears are at right now, and maybe if they should look to add a couple pieces here?
I'd be surprised. I mean, to get Montez for a second-round pick was stealing. I mean, there was nobody like Montez in this draft. Not that plays that hard with that size, wingspan, the stuff that he presents. Like, that was a great deal. Great deal. Washington still hasn't really recovered from it. Didn't make any sense to me now. Then it doesn't make any sense now. But I don't really see a position. The defense tackles are playing really well. They've got young guys they want to develop. I mean, they picked up Taylor right before the season starts from Seattle. He's been a good player for them. You could say offensive lineman, but nobody has extra offensive linemen right now. Like, not any good ones that are going to let walk. So play Matt Pryor. He's playing himself into a position right now. He's probably on a 1-year deal. I mean, I don't know if he could keep this up. He hasn't really sustained that before. We hadn't been given a chance like this before. So you could say offensive line, but there's nobody out there that's going to give up a good offensive lineman. Nobody has depth as it is right now. So I don't really see a position right now. Maybe they have extra running backs that somebody else might covet at this point, where they could trade and get an asset. I could see something like that happening, because it looks like they're very content with DeAndre and Rashawn at that position right now.
Baldy, as the Bears are in their bye week now, what's the next step for this offense? Like, what do they need to continue doing for Caleb Williams in the offense? Because they put up 30-plus points the past 2 weeks, but what's the next step for them to kind of continue trending in the right direction here?
Well, it's not. I mean, look, to score in the 30s, and to put up the number of touchdowns they've scored in back-to-back weeks. I mean, every team in the league would love that, but it's really about sustaining it. And then, if I look at the Bears right now and I go, okay, if I said, okay, statistically, because this is what Matt's doing right now and the whole staff is doing. They're literally looking, after 6 games, they're looking at their weaknesses right now. And they're saying, okay, whether it's a slant series, whether it's a power series, like on third downs right now, they're converting 35%. Now, they started off really it's gotten better the last 2 weeks. But, that's a number that should be around 42, 43%. All right, that's where you'd like to get that to. If you're saying, okay, run defense, they're at they're giving up 4.6 yards a carry. They've given up too many explosive runs. So, you put these things on a reel, the coaches are working their butts off going, okay, they're self-scouting. Like, we got to stop these explosive runs. Tony Pollard's run comes to mind. Like, we got to stop this stuff. Indianapolis, it comes to mind. They gave up an explosive run to Jonathan Taylor. Like, is it tackling? Is it getting off blocks? Are we not squeezing the front side back? So you're just reviewing every phase of the game. Could be special teams, and coming back and basically saying, okay, if you want to be a playoff team, if you want to have a chance to win the division, these are the elements right now that we have to improve. And if you said, okay, all right, let's go outside zone, we're giving up 4.8 yards a carry. If you want to be a playoff team, we got to take that down to 3.9 yards. And this is how we're going to do it. So I think you just take a look at be just very introspective about each phase of the team and the game, and say, all right, we like the takeaways right now. That's in good shape. But, this is where we need to be if we want to have a crack at this division.
It's going to be tough, but we're the way this is shaping up, it's looking like it's going to be a fun ride here, and some winnable games coming up for the Bears too. Can't wait to talk to you next week as we get set up for that game against the Commanders that you'll be at. Should be a good matchup, and have a great week, Baldy.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Look forward to it, man. Enjoy it.
We all silly like the mayor.